Big fluff.
Well, isn't this just peachy? Another fine day in the life of being a bounty hunter, I guess. Let's see, what do we got here? A mob bus? Check. Gun pointed at my head? Check. We're in an abandoned warehouse. Perfect. And oh yeah, I'm wearing a schoolgirl uniform. So it must be Friday. Is it Friday already? Plan A is obviously in effect. Man, I really gotta find a new way to pay the bills. This job sucks.
Hello again, I'm Joel Murphy.
And I'm Andy McIntyre.
And this is Silver Linings Playback, the podcast where we watch maligned movies and we find their silver linings.
And it is April, and there's a famous event that happens every year in April. And that's the Mania of Wrestling.
That's also not true, by the way. I don't want to like call you, at the beginning, but just to be factually correct, it keeps getting later and later, WrestleMania. It used to be March, and it seems to be creeping.
There are a lot of years where it's early April.
Yeah, but it's like now it's late April this year.
Yeah, no, it is. The 19th and 20th is when it actually happens this year.
Yeah.
And when we went, it was actually 2 years ago today.
Right. And fun fact about the year we went, it was the last year it was ever affordable.
Yep.
It was still expensive, but you could go.
No, I don't regret that. We spent a decent chunk of change to go to WrestleMania that year.
Right.
It might even be the most I've spent on an event ticket. I feel pretty comfortable saying that.
Yeah, I think that's true for me. Yeah, but we went both days. We went 2 days.
Both days. Yeah.
Yeah. And like now it's like quadrupled or more the price than what we paid.
Because last year it was like, it's in Philadelphia, it's 90 minutes away from where I live here in Maryland. And I was like, I'll see, maybe there's, last day, some low end tickets. Nope. No.
Yeah, it's in Vegas, which is a very reasonable, trip from LA to take if I wanted to go. And I actually think it'd be more affordable to just go to Caesars and bet it all on black, like in one hand.
Yeah, you might be right about that. Although I did also see something that these ticket prices aren't working because this is on pace to be the least attended WrestleMania since like WrestleMania 12 or something like that.
Yeah, I know this is not why we're here, but it is what we're talking about. So I do want to say that I fundamentally do believe it is a mistake because I do think wrestling having its roots in the carnival and just like wrestling lives as a live show, and its beating heart are fans that don't have a lot of money who can come out when the carnival comes to their town. And I think it's a huge mistake to price people out. And I think it is ultimately bad. It's a short-sighted way to make cash up front while then ultimately cannibalizing your business.
Yeah, it's I've spent decent amounts of money on wrestling tickets. I think when I went to WrestleMania 22 years ago, like I think it was like $150 maybe that we spent to get the upper bowl of Madison Square Garden. We were actually behind the stage, so we couldn't even see the stage. So when Kane made his entrance and the whole, like, it looked like the city was on fire, we didn't get to see that, and that would have been cool as shit. But yeah, and then going to indie shows, going to other AEW pay-per-view or WWE pay-per-views, AEW shows, like it's $50 to $75, I think, is a reasonable ticket price for faraway seats.
Yes. Yeah. And no, say like I know we talked about it recently, how me and my friends went to Starrcade 3 years in a row during the last 3 Starrcades. And the first one that we went to, which was the Sting versus Hogan one, we literally were in the last row. There was a wall behind us that was the outside of the stadium. But it was, like you could go. That was probably like $40, I want to say, or something, you know, to see Starrcade. I think we actually were on the same, like, as far away from the ring as Sting was when he was lowered from the rafters. Like, we could have lowered his rope for him from where we were sitting.
Yeah. I was pretty near the last row when I went to SummerSlam 2002, which was the Rock Brock match and the Shawn Michaels Shawn Michaels return match. But
Yeah.
I don't think we were the last row, but we were within 3 rows of the wall of the Nassau Coliseum.
It is. There's something funny about the fact that Dusty Rhodes kind of was a blue collar hero, that was, you know, the son of a plumber, and that now that Cody, that it is just like he's now the champ during the era when no plumber could possibly afford to see him wrestle.
I don't know. As someone who just had plumbing work done on my house today, they might be able to afford it.
Oh, maybe you know what? Maybe his dad was rich. Maybe Dusty Rhodes' dad was loaded.
Yeah, maybe Virgil Runnels Sr. actually was quite papered in Austin, Texas.
I mean, that whole family seems to own Rolexes, so maybe he was.
And Cody clearly appreciates the finer things in life.
That's true. Yeah.
But we're not talking about Cody Rhodes at all this month because he's never starred in a movie.
Nope. And he never will. Not as long as I'm in charge of Hollywood. Also, people would be confused because I think a lot of people already confuse him with Homelander. So if he actually started doing movies, then that would get like even more confusing.
Yeah. No, he does look like if you face swapped Dusty Rhodes' face onto Homelander, like with a cheap like deep fake. Like that's not a far out description.
And dresses like it. Like I think he leans into it.
Well, yeah, his ring entrance gear is always very Homelander inspired.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm here for. I know you're not as big a Cody guy, but I'm definitely a Cody fan.
If by not as big of a Cody guy, do you mean that I hope John Cena will beat him at WrestleMania? Then yes.
Oh, I do too. Don't get me wrong, because it's the right choice. But I like Cody.
Yeah, full cards on the table. I was kind of happy when he lost when we went. We went to the WrestleMania where he sat in the ring, sad.
Yeah. I mean, it was I still contest that it was the wrong call for how just deflated the entire building got, but it was pretty funny.
It was pretty funny. I'll also die on the hill that Sami Zayn should have won the title a month earlier. I know that ruins WrestleMania, but in my heart, Sami Zayn is the guy who should have beat Roman Reigns.
Yeah, really what they should have done was found a way to get Sami into the main event of Mania and Cody out of it and realize that was the money. Yeah. That was the money match.
Yeah, because it was the more organic. It was sort of like when Bryan Danielson, they had no choice but to put him in the main event because it's what fans wanted. And it again, that wasn't a knock on Batista at the time. It was just he was the guy.
A little bit of a knock on Batista at the time.
Maybe I like Batista more than I care about Cody Rhodes.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
But it was very satisfying when Cody won last year, and it'll be very satisfying when John Cena wins in a few weeks.
Oh, that's true. I agree with all that. Last year's main event was fun.
Yeah, super fun. All that to say, I had mentioned WrestleMania 20 already, and this is going to be our segue into this week's episode. One of the more what 10
minutes into the show.
Fine. It's fine. 8.5, whatever. Laser focused here at the SLP podcast show. One of the iconic events of WrestleMania 20 was Christian turning heel on Chris Jericho with the help of one Trish Stratus.
Yep.
The first time she had turned heel since she debuted as the manager of TNA, Test and Albert. And the look she gave after making out with Christian on stage was like the most evil, like sexy look in the history of evil, sexy looks. And then she starred in a movie that is sometimes called Bail Enforcers and sometimes called Bounty Hunters. And that's what we're talking about, because we're doing wrestler movies again, back by popular demand.
Yes.
And we're talking about this multi-titled movie.
Although I think you're doing a disservice to how sexy and evil John Cena looked when he looked over at The Rock before kicking Cody Rhodes in the nuts.
I still say it's second. It's a close second.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
It's a close
Trish
second.
had been wearing jorts, I think.
No, she was wearing jean capris, so close. But yeah, this is the most Canadian movie we've done for the pod.
Yeah, no, the name Bail Enforcers is Canadian. Like that, I can't even explain what the difference, because Bail Enforcers is, you could use that term in America. That makes sense. Like, but the difference between that, like, it's just, that's the Canadian title. And then they changed it to an American title. It feels like,
to become one of like 9 movies called Bounty Hunters.
it's impossible to find this movie on like Letterboxd or IMDb if you type Bounty Hunters. You have to type Bail Enforcers to find it, which is funny in its own right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe this is her acting debut. I don't know if you said that.
This is her her feature film acting debut. I think she had done some TV work. But I think even most of the TV work was her playing Trish Stratus like on a show.
Yeah. Which was a big thing. I don't know if that's as prevalent now, but that was a big thing in the 90s and early 2000s, was wrestlers appearing either as themselves or as a wrestler in something. Boy Meets World really cycled through quite a few.
Vader as Frankie Stachino's father.
Yeah, and then, I mean, Mick Foley showed up on there, and, you know, back in the days when Triple H would do the Drew Carey show and such.
Yep. The Rock played his dad on that 70s show.
That's right. Yeah.
Played Soul Man Rocky Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot more common.
And also, like, we haven't even talked about it's funny now because Batista just became part of the MCU and an actual, probably the most wrestler, like, turned actor.
Oh, unequivocally.
But you mentioned Kane earlier. All of those guys, Kane and I think Batista and all of them, would all show up on like Smallville or like those early DC TV shows. They all played villains on there.
Yeah, they did.
Which is probably why I know that James Gunn said that Marvel actually had a rule that said pro wrestlers could not be considered for their superhero movies. And he had to convince them to hire Batista in spite of that rule. And I think that was because of all of those DC TV shows that really poisoned the well.
Yeah. And then in those TV shows, like, there'd inevitably be a fight scene where they would hit their wrestling finish.
Well, I think that's why it was cheesy, because it was always sort of a wink at the audience to be like, they're playing this guy, but like, it's Kane.
Well, because like I vividly remember an episode of, I think it's Star Trek Voyager, where The Rock plays like a Klingon gladiator and absolutely does the rock bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I have a vague memory of Kane being someone who escaped from the Phantom Zone in Smallville and like fought Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and probably chokeslammed him at one point.
I'd be upset if he didn't.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is Trish Stratus, and like, I think we have to say at the beginning, because it's very noticeable as soon as you start watching it, this movie looks and feels incredibly low budget.
Yeah, it and very differently in the way that Fatal Deviation feels low budget.
Well, yeah, because again, as we talked about last week, Fatal Deviation just seems like friends with a home camera. This definitely feels like a production where people were involved, but it just has the feel of they didn't have any money.
No, they're so it definitely gives like mockbuster energy.
Yeah, 100%.
What's that? Oh yeah. And early Silver Lining, I don't know if you watched the credits,
Oh, I watched the blooper reel.
Oh, I'm not even talking about the blooper reel. One of the thank yous was the Squib Company.
Oh, I didn't catch that, but that's pretty great.
Which I think was the extent of the special effects in this with the squib. But no, this movie, like, it does have a very low budget feel. It's clearly shot on video. Like, you can tell, like, it's not shot on film, nor is it shot digitally. Like, it's very much it has that 60 frames per second VHS like look to it. It's very cheaply made.
Yeah, two things that occur to me. One, I want to believe they thanked the Squib Company because they were like, we can afford a squib. And then the company took pity on them. I was like, you know what?
And let them use 9 for the final shootout.
They're like, you know what? We made these squibs for this big Warner Brothers production and they just canceled on us. So, they're just sitting here in the warehouse.
Here you go, bud.
Take them. So that, but then, I think the other thing where it feels low budget is I don't think the choreography, the fight choreography is bad or anything, but it definitely feels like it was all done in one take where it's like not quite as clean as you would want it to be. Like there's a part where Trish Stratus does a kip up, which is a great move and always fun. And she does it like fine. Like it's not clean, it's not like textbook, but if it was a wrestling match and it was happening in front of a live audience, it would be good enough to get a pop. But it's like, if you have the benefit of it being on camera and you can do it multiple times,
the best one,
you would probably do another one just to get one that looked a little cleaner, I think. So it's just a lot of that, or like punches that kind of miss a guy's face, obviously, but they don't go back and shoot it again.
Yeah, there is a lot of that. I was gonna say, because I thought the fight choreography, I think all of that is true, but like the fight scenes were pretty cool.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I think the choreography is good. I think even
they didn't have a lot of time or footage to shoot it again.
Yeah, because it's like John Wick has great fight choreography, but I bet if they only shot one take, there would be times where someone missed their blocking or it didn't look clean.
Objectively true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's that. I don't think anyone in the movie is doing anything wrong. I think they probably just went, we got to keep going. They didn't have time to shoot things a few times.
I think that's 100% true.
I think, but honestly, though, when we're talking about maligning it, I think the thing that we have to talk about is the plot, because
I'm sorry, what?
It's the series of events that happen.
Still, nope, not sure what you're referring to.
Okay, the stuff in between when they're punching each other.
Nope. Doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, well,
no,
fair.
But kidding aside, all joking aside, yeah, the plot.
Yeah, because I need to talk it through with you to understand, because it's sweaty. The premise of this movie is sweaty, and it's both not complicated, but I'm also not sure I tracked it. So, well, let's talk it through if we can.
All right, so.
They're bail enforcers.
There are bail enforcers that may also kind of be cops, but aren't cops.
Well, they wear vests that say that they're bail enforcers. I'm going to guess that's Canadian.
That might be a Canadian thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's Trish Stratus, Boomer Phillips, and not Eric Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is his actual name.
Yeah.
John Jerkovich. No, it's not. It's close to that, though.
This is like a porn star.
I mean, nope, wasn't close. Frank Zupancic plays Ridley. Trish Stratus plays Jules, and then Boomer Phillips plays Chase Thompson, and they are the titular bail bounty enforcers.
You know what's fun? Say those three, just the first names. Say those 3 first names again.
Jules, Ridley, and Chase are the actors.
Yeah, Jules, Ridley, and Chase. You know what I love about it? Interchangeable. Any of them could be Jules, Ridley, or Chase, and it would not matter.
It doesn't matter. They could all be Jules. They could all be Ridley. They could all be Chase.
Yeah, utterly just completely like non-gendered, interchangeable placeholder names.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, so that's all of them. And yeah, so they're bail enforcers. They catch a guy. Oh, also, Trish Stratus is also needlessly a stripper, which definitely, that's the other thing too, is it's like, it both looks cheap, but it then also has that direct to video feel of like, we have to throw in as much pointless, not even sex, but just the idea of sex, to like sell it.
This show feels like a TV show that came on after SNL.
Yeah, 100%. It's got a USA Up All Night kind of feel to it. But it's, so she's also a stripper for some reason, which is mostly just to like have a woman be topless in one scene and to find a reason for Trish to do the splits at the end.
Yeah, the topless woman, not Trish Stratus.
Right.
Just want to be very clear about that.
But there is, it's funny because Trish doesn't do her finishing move in this after we just talked about that with like all those appearances by wrestlers, but they do something that they call a finishing move, which is the splits, which she gets the idea to do from one of the other strippers that the not Eric Roberts guy, who is her boyfriend, tells her to do.
Is he her boyfriend?
I thought so, but maybe not. It's unclear.
It feels like, because in the very last shot, which is maybe the least sensical thing in the whole, or not the last shot, but the very like last sequence after they kill the bad guy, they're about to kiss, and it didn't seem like they were romantic at any other point in the movie.
Right. I got the impression that we were supposed to think there was a will they or won't they kind of romantic thing, but that I'm with you that it's not. There's not like chemistry. You don't like feel it happening or like root for them to get together or anything.
Yeah. Because I'll be honest, this movie didn't do a great job of holding my attention.
No. But that's why I want to. Okay, so they're bail enforcers. They catch a guy, but that guy says, if you let me go, I can point you towards an even better bail to get. You know, like someone who's worth even like, more money.
There's like a bounty, like a criminal bounty on his head for $1 million.
Right.
And then the bail on the money for returning him is like a bail jumper is like 10,000 or something like that.
But I thought, wasn't there something where they because they talked Trish Stratus into some plan to catch some other guy. The first guy they catch is leading them to the second guy who is worth more money. And I think they let the first guy go.
Maybe.
I thought that happened. And then
that sounds right. I don't know.
Because, well, that's my thing is like, so then they catch this second guy at a massage parlor because, again, it's a USA Up All Night special.
And they do call it a rub and tug.
They call it a rub and tug. And there's a whole hilarious thing where they pretend to be a couple looking to spice up their relationship. But so they catch the guy, and then the mob guy calls them up and is like, I'll give you $1 million to hand this guy over to me because he's going to testify against me. And this is where I did like, I think ultimately the plot doesn't matter too much, but the thing that I needed to be able to follow for this to work at all was, okay, so are they corrupt or are they not? Are they incorruptible? Because like it seemed like they were willing to give up the little fish for the big fish, which is already questionably morally. But then when a guy's like, I'll give you $1 million to turn the guy over to me instead of the police, is that different? You've already made your own judgment about who you're arresting and who you aren't arresting. So like,
yeah,
how different is it at that point?
It's definitely. And then they walk, like at the end of the movie, after killing a bunch of people, they just walk off with the bag of cash.
Right. And I think that's important, too, because it's like, what are we supposed to feel about it? I think that's my thing is like, how are we supposed to view them? Are they supposed to be like arbiters of justice who, you know, never waver in their conviction that criminals should be locked up? Or are they morally gray, corrupt characters? That does matter in terms of just understanding the story, because, again, yeah, like you said, They refuse to turn the guy over to get $1 million from the mob boss, but they are willing to murder the mob boss to take his $1 million. And we're supposed to think that's better.
We're supposed to, or we're confused.
Which is all I was. That's kind of my point, is it's like, I never had a good grasp of how I was supposed to feel about the three characters. They seem to imply that the one guy who's not Eric Roberts, the third
Boomer
guy,
Phillips,
who
Chase.
I believe was named Jules Chase.
Jules Ridley Chase.
Jules Ridley Chase in the movie. He seemed the most corrupt, and I think he even is trying to push them to be like, let's take the money, because his logic is like, even if we turn him over to the police, they're still going to murder this guy. So why not let them murder him?
We get money.
Yeah. Which is like, yeah, that's slimy. But then that is what happens. Like, we're supposed to judge him for wanting that. But then when it happens in the end, we're supposed to feel good about the fact that it played out that way.
Yes.
Which I think way too morally complex and interesting for what this movie's ambitions were. But a movie where that character was working behind the back of the other two to do this kind of stuff without telling them what was happening would be an infinitely more interesting movie.
No, 100% it would be. And to maybe have the running plot of the movie be their varying degrees of corruptibility, maybe that would have been what made more sense.
Right. Yeah, because I think they really didn't want not Eric Roberts to seem bad because they wanted us to like him. But then he was both like apologizing for getting Trish Stratus into this situation while not really, like, while still being a good guy who didn't want to seem to be wanting it to happen, which is like a weird, that's a tough like thing to really sell, because you kind of need him to be worse for that to make sense.
Yeah. And then you end up are supposed to feel pity for Chase after he gets shot near the end, and then but also kills the bad guy to save the day.
Which again is something where I think you need to go harder, and he should just die because he's bad,
Yeah, make a choice.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I think, does the plot really matter? No, but I think we at least need to understand who the three main characters are and what's happening to them.
Yeah, I mean, I might argue that if this movie had a sensical plot, that maybe it could have achieved some level of Canadian cult status. But because the plot's so dumb, it doesn't deserve your attention.
I was in a Canadian cult once. It was really weird. They kept their biggest.
You were
thing
the basis for Our Lady Peace, right?
Yeah. But they kept insisting that ham was bacon, which was that's what broke me. Ultimately, I was like, this is not bacon. You can't
ham is
call
not
it
bacon.
that. Yeah. And then I don't know. They kept calling money loonies.
That doesn't sound real.
No, but I will tell you how they got me in is they offered me some French fries and they poured gravy and cheese on top of them.
That'll get you.
And that was amazing. And also they all loved pro wrestling. So it wasn't that bad at first. And also they were very polite. I will say that about them. They were like, hey, we're going to need you to give us your money, eh?
We're going to need you to get a bunch of loonies there, bud. And just go ahead and put them right here in this toque.
And then they're like, hey, we're going to need you to not talk to your family anymore, eh?
Yeah, you're just going to have to cut them all right out of your life. We're pretty much your family now, bud. So just go ahead and, sever all those ties to the life you used to know, and then come on over here. All right, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, it was really rough.
Can you tell I grew up near Canada?
I can. That's actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's not that far of a stretch to say that I grew up right near Lake Ontario. Yeah. So
it's also, man, the world sucks in 2025 because this is a good bit, but then part of my brain is like, oh, wait, America's actually against Canada now, so I should stop leaning into this silly bit because I guess we're at war with them.
We're in a trade war with them, apparently.
Yeah, we're unironically living the plot of South Park, bigger, longer, uncut. So I should be careful about my
we're actually recording this the day that a lot of the tariffs go into effect against Canada.
Yeah, so I mean, this podcast is going to get more expensive to make because that's the thing is like now to rent bail enforcers is going to be so expensive.
Couple more toonies. Instead of just a loony, it'll be a toonie.
I'm going to need you to pay double now, eh?
Yeah, don't you? It's going to be a little bit more cash. Yeah. I hate America right now.
It's real stupid. Real stupid.
Real dumb. But I want this podcast to be a break from all of that. So we're going to stop.
Yeah. No, like I said, I only brought it up because I was like, it's funny to do a bit about Canada. And then I was like, I guess you can't do comedy anymore.
Yeah. The woke mind virus won't let us do
comedy's illegal now.
Yeah. Can't let us, make fun of the politeness and slightly off accent. To get us back on track. Man, does Trish's Canadian accent come out in this one? Oh, does she round her O's? Oh, she definitely hits for sure, bud.
It kind of feels like that of, someone who left their hometown and their accent went away and they go back home. Like it's definitely coming through. Yeah, it's coming through in a big way for sure.
It's like you get back to the East Coast and you start seeing Wooder. And you talk about, I was like, we're staying for 2 weeks. I'm going to have to do some wash.
Yeah, that I never understood that R in the word wash. I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's pretty great to hear Trish Stratus's Canadian accent come out.
I mean, are you ready to fully pivot? Because I think I am. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Boomer Phillips. Yay or nay?
Yeah. Nay, and actually, I'm glad you brought it up because I'm glad I would have gone past this, and I think it's important to also malign in this movie that his character particularly is a conduit for a high level of gay panic in this movie. That, I mean, this came out in like the 2010s, right?
2011.
Yeah. So way like too late. It's way too late to be doing it, and there's a lot of those kind of jokes and a lot of racist jokes about Asian people because some of the villains are Asian. A lot of that, and it's all his character for whatever reason. I'm not putting that on him, but he's definitely the person who says all of those things.
Yeah. So if any of our listeners out there are fans of the show Letterkenny, of which I count myself, I adore that show. I think it's hilarious and brilliant. Boomer Phillips had a very fun minor role on Letterkenny, so I was very excited to see him in this. Boomer Phillips plays a hockey player affectionately called Boomtown in Letterkenny. And in this, it's weird because this movie, like, it felt like the producers of this movie thought that Trish Stratus was going to be the person that got people into the theater to see the comedic brilliance that was Boomer Phillips.
Yes.
And if you watch like all of the end credit blooper reel scenes, it's all extended takes of Boomer riffing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're funnier than some of the stuff that got left in. Yes. I'll say that.
Yeah, but I would agree with that. Yeah.
And I would wager that he is funny and has a good sense of comedy, but man, his character shouldn't exist in a 2011 movie.
Right. Yeah. Which is my thing is like, I'm not going to put that on him because that's not fair. It probably was all in the script, but no, the character of Chase is not a good character. And again,
Problematic.
I think problematic. And I think a better choice and a more interesting choice would have been to just fully make him the bad character, the kind of character that Giovanni Ribisi would play in a movie where it's it's like the other two are saddled with him and they love him. So even though he's brought them into this thing.
A John Turturro type.
Yeah. Like all I'm saying is that the Boomer Phillips should be agreeing to steal 60 cars in a night. And that, you know, the Nicolas Cage that is Trish Stratus should be coming in to bail him out.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Definitely.
Yeah.
Like that. 100%. Yeah. I knew we couldn't pivot without talking about Boomer because I feel like he's in the maligned side, even though as an actor and a person, I'm a big fan. Let's pivot.
Well,
the ambulance fight.
I also like he's fine because every week when Mark Maron ends his show, he reminds us that Boomer lives. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Ambulance fight.
That fight's dope as hell.
Well, I think we can even take one step back and Andrea James Liu.
She's
Andrea
awesome.
James Liu.
Might be Andrea. You don't know.
I don't know which it is, unfortunately, but she plays a character named Ruby. She, I think, is my favorite part of this movie. Like in the way that what you just said about Boomer, I feel like happened for her, which is like Trish Stratus is the reason that we're watching this episode, but she's the breakout star of this movie, like 100%. Because she is the person that Trish is fighting in the ambulance. She also beats up Boomer in a diner bathroom in an earlier scene, which is great. Too. Yeah, all of her fight scenes are the best fight scenes in the movie. And yeah, she basically like they take out, well, like Trish gets injured and ends up in a hospital. And there's also, this feels, again, I don't know if this is Canadian or if this is the movie or what, but there is an utterly weird bit in this movie where not Eric Roberts takes Trish to the hospital, just drops her off, and they're like, "Hey, sir, hold on." And he just throws a credit card at them and he's like, "Just ring it up and figure it out." And then later in the movie, he's like, "Why haven't they called me to tell me how she's doing?" And it's like, you didn't fill out any paperwork. How
Canadian healthcare, man. It's a journey.
But they leave her at the hospital and then they realize that the bad guys are going to come get Trish from the hospital. And they do it by pretending to be medical professionals and they get her in the back. And then Trish starts to wake up and her and Ruby just are fighting in the back of the ambulance while it's driving. And
and they end by cuddling.
They do kind of collapse on top of each other. There's also a lot in the way that there's gay panic with the men. There's a lot of like they have her character kind of imply that she wants to have sex with Trish Stratus, which again, but you're not special.
Yeah, so that does not make you unique.
But
it'd be weirder if you didn't want to have sex with Trish Stratus, if we're being honest.
Yes, 100%.
Regardless of your sexual identity or orientation, everyone's like, yeah, I would.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't want to meet the person. Yeah, who would be like, no,
pass.
Yeah,
no, it's it's weird, but no. And Andrea Jane Liu is awesome. And if Andrew, if you're listening, I think there's a part for you in Bloody with a Chance of Christmas.
Oh my God, there's a part for you in every movie we've ever written, including Lasagna and Cubanos, where you just beat the hell out of
somebody.
Of Joey Coco Diaz for 10 minutes. Just why not?
And that's how we get him to sign on, as a matter of fact.
Look, it's a tender love story that will win the Palme d'Or, but also you get beat up in a diner bathroom and then fart.
You know what? I'm in. Hey,
it's in my rider.
That's every movie. Sometimes it doesn't make the final cut, but it's in every movie.
I would believe
Andrea,
that
she's beat me up 6 times before.
I would believe that he farts on every set, because that was a blooper in one of the Dog Who movies where he just farted on Dean Cain, which is my favorite thing that's ever happened in a movie that we've watched for this show.
It's my favorite thing that's ever happened in a movie.
It's my favorite thing that's ever happened to Dean Cain. too.
Yeah, it's Coco Diaz farting on Dean Cain, then Avengers Assemble.
Yeah.
That's number 2.
Which, well, I mean, I think the Coco Diaz thing should be number 2.
Ayo,
we really think about it.
Brr, brr, brr.
But also, I think we should set that scene to the Avengers music. The ba 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 ba. It's just on your left, and then yeah.
As the sling ring thing is opening, just
Yeah. Okay, well, I have some editing to do.
yeah, get ready for the end clip of this episode.
The end game, if you will.
If you and I will. All
right, well, I think we did it.
I mean, listen. No, the fight scenes are really cool. Shout out to Andrea Jane Liu. Trish Stratus was fun.
I think the movie does Trish a disservice in that, like, it's a shame in the weird way that I think this movie is sort of also represents her exact arc in the WWE, which is, if people don't know, which is weird if you've listened to this whole episode and you're not familiar with Trish's career, but like, she was a trailblazing wrestler in that the women's division was never taken seriously. And she was the first, like, kind of breakthrough wrestler where she had to do a lot of the sexy pillow fighting-esque 90s wrestling matches that women were put in, but stood out. Like, her and Lita were both sort of the ones that were able to be like, okay, but I'll do this, but I can actually wrestle.
Well, yeah, and different than, say, a Terry Runnels or a Deborah McMichael or a lot of the other women from that age, and not to like slight them in any way, like Trish really put work into becoming a between the ropes wrestler,
right?
And like when she started with Tess and Albert, she was just a pretty face, for lack of a better word.
I think that's
put the work in and got really freaking good.
Yeah, and I think that's not a knock on Deborah or Terry Runnels or any of them, in that, because I think the difference is in that era, women were not expected to know anything about wrestling. And so the other, like, all the women that were valets there was nothing wrong with that because that was the job. But like, Trish is notable in that could have been what she just did. And she did not want to just do that. She wanted to learn how to be a great wrestler. And she is a great wrestler.
Yeah. And that's not to say that any of the other women from that era couldn't have been. But they chose their path and they did well with what that thing was. But Trish really wanted to become a wrestler and did, and became a very good one.
Right. And in some ways, it's, this is its own silver lining, not really related to the movie, but related to Trish, in that it's nice now when she comes back and when Lita comes back that they're now able to wrestle as part of a women's division that they basically created, that now has a bunch of comparable talent and like can actually be a part of a thriving women's division now that they trailblazed.
All of the fits and starts that women's wrestling had in WWF/WWE from the 80s onward. Like, you had a brief moment with Wendy Richter and Fabulous Moolah, and then you had, like, a few years later, the Jumping Bomb Angels, and then there was like no women's matches from like 1988 until 1996. Or when there was like that brief bit where Alundra Blaze / Medusa and all of the Japanese wrestlers came in and did stuff, but like it never like got traction until Trish and Lita like really started to move it in that direction. And then with like the NXT people and everything like that. And yeah, Trish is indelible to the fabric of women's wrestling in America for sure.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, truly an icon. And yeah, like, but I started that to say that I think she's dealing with some of the same stuff in this movie of like, her character is a stripper who wears very short plaid skirts. And it's like, that's the hurdle that she has to overcome to be the action star in this movie.
100%.
And that kind of sucks, but Trish is great.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, like, yeah, she's fantastic, and it was fun, and I love how Canadian she is. That's my other big silver lining, is be more Canadian, Trish.
Silver Linings Playback is a production of HoboTrashcan.com. If you enjoyed the show, please rate or review it on Apple Podcasts. Hear more great shows on the Peak Sloth Podcast Network.